From Arcane League of Legends to the Home Alone reboot on Disney Plus, we're going to be talking about it all, so strap in and let's discuss the various media that came out in the year of our Lord, 2021. So this is just going to be a low-key video about what came out this year in a numbered list, as well as what I watched in general this year and how they made me feel, similar to my last year's video, Pop Culture Wrap-Up 2020. And please note that the things on this list didn't all come out in 2021, but I did watch them in 2021. Also insert spoilers here. And at the end of this video, I'll be talking about my very abrupt break from social media that happened in October, November-ish, and I'll also be talking about the future of my channel. And finally, before we start, if you haven't already, please follow me on Twitter as I had to remake my Twitter. More on that later. On my Twitter, I'll be posting video updates as well as my art, so if you're into that, go ahead and check it out. Thank you. And the last thing, if you do like this video, please give it a like, comment, share it with someone, because the algorithm is just not my friend right now. So in no particular order, let's go and let me know what you think about all of these pieces of media down below. Number 1. Raya and the Last Dragon. So I was actually going to make a video about Raya and the Last Dragon, but then it just got too late for me to talk about, and now it's really late to talk about, but here I am anyway. Firstly, I thought that it was a good story, and I actually really liked the world that they built, and I remember watching the movie and really liking it. I know that the biggest point of contention was, of course, the voice cast, as most of the voice actors were East Asian and not Southeast Asian. In addition, none of the directors were Southeast Asian either. On the other hand, a lot of people felt represented by this movie, and a lot of Southeast Asian artists did work on the movie, so I think that's cool. And I remember liking the movie when I was watching it, but now it just seems really forgettable. So, number 2, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. So Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is a show on Netflix, and I watched it this year even though it came out in 2015 and ended in 2019. And overall, I really enjoyed it and I thought it was really well made. The story focuses on Rebecca Bunch, who is a Jewish American woman who is later diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. The show tackles things such as mental illness, as well as gender expectations and sexism, as pertaining to the crazy ex-girlfriend trope, and it's just really good. I really did enjoy it. It's also a musical TV show in that they burst into song every now and then, and my 2 favorite songs are Child Star and End of the Movie with Josh Groban. Most of the songs are really funny and actually remind me of earlier Bo Burnham songs because they touch on topics that he touches upon a lot. I definitely recommend it if you haven't seen it already. So number 3, Bo Burnham's Inside. This is gonna sound mean, but I think I've outgrown Bo Burnham. I still like his older work, and 8th Grade is truly an amazing movie, but I don't know, like his new special didn't really grab me in any way, and I think that's fine. We can outgrow artists, and I think that's just part of life. I definitely felt like the Inside special was made more to give himself peace of mind, and I think that's great, and I hope with whatever he does next that he's happy. So number 4, Conversations with a Killer, the Ted Bundy tapes. So this year I finally watched the Conversations with a Killer, the Ted Bundy tapes, which actually came out on Netflix in 2019, but I've been wanting to watch it for a long time and it finally got around to it, and it was of course just horrifying. The weirdest thing to me, or at least one of the weirdest things, was that everyone talks about how he could really hide his face well or turn into like this chameleon figure, but I just didn't see it. Like in all the pictures that they showed lined up, he looks exactly the same to me. A lot of people in the documentary also said that he was charming in some way, and when they do show him talk, he's just not charming at all. If anything, he reminds me of a certain president, just this very arrogant and entitled asshole. Maybe he was charming at the time, but I didn't get that either. And one of the things that pissed me off the most was the judge that presided over Bundy's case, because he was just so enamored with him. And the fact that Bundy got away with so much shit just for being a quote-unquote good-looking, white, educated man just says a lot about US society as a whole. In the end, he was sentenced to death and put into the electric chair, and the documentary shows how it was kind of like a party for people, you know, the burn Bundy burn thing. and people were just living it up at the execution. And even after all of that, I still don't believe in the death penalty, and it was nice that the documentary didn't show the death penalty in like a positive light, but instead made the audience question it. So number 5, Shang Chi. So after Shang Chi came to Disney Plus, I was finally able to watch it, and I thought it was okay. I haven't seen many Marvel movies, but even so, I could follow it, and it was decent. I really liked what they did with the Mandarin and Ben Kingsley's character, as well as his furry little sidekick, but is it sad that I thought that that was like the most memorable part of the movie? I felt personally like it was too much of a carbon copy of Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and really wasn't that original. I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion or not. The themes of the movie were really similar to that of ones that we saw in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 with Ego and also with Thanos and Gamora, and I don't know, it just felt, again, unoriginal. But of course that story is really important to be told and those themes are really important, but I felt like they were just kind of taking a lazy way out, something that they already did before, and they're just doing it again. I also didn't like how the dad got a somewhat sympathetic ending as well, and his children, or at least Shang-Chi, kind of forgave him. What I did like about the movie was the Gate of Darkness and the mother's siren song. I thought that was really interesting. But I don't know, it was weird how like most of the movie took place in a mystical world where the Asian people there were aliens from another planet. I really didn't get it. The lore was, to me at least, really confusing, even though they tried to lay it out really well and even have like, a whole expositional part of the movie is just explaining how they got there. I don't know, it didn't resonate with me. On the other hand, I really thought that the rings were cool, and I liked the powers, and I liked how they were rendered, so there's that. It was overall just a really mixed bag, and I don't know, it was okay, I guess. Number 6, You Season 3. So I was so pumped for You Season 3, and it did not disappoint. Like, sometimes I still think about some of the scenes, like they just really stick with you. So You Season 3 makes you think it's doing the predictable route of Joe cheating on Love with this neighbor woman, but instead we see that that's just the beginning, as Love kills the neighbor and they have to cover up her murder as the town and her husband get closer and closer to solving the case. In order to cover their tracks, Love and Joe must befriend their neighbors, and while befriending them, they end up having to lock a few of them up who end up finding out the truth. The best characters, in my opinion, of this season were Sherry and Carrie, and how they were able to transform their torture into a TED Talk. Like, that was just an amazing and brilliant way to end their story. I also really liked how they ended up truly being a perfect couple, and it wasn't just a ruse like Joe thought in his cynical mind, and in fact, love can genuinely exist in what seems like a suburb full of fakers. What I did find disappointing, though, was that they didn't show anyone who was on Joe's trail. I think last season someone found the urine he left somewhere, and I thought maybe a rogue detective was finally going to catch him, but no, he ends happily in Paris, and that was just frustrating. So, number 7, Tiger King Season 2. So Tiger King Season 2 came out, and if you've seen the first one, you probably know what it's about. Tiger King centers on the world of, let's say, big cat enthusiasts who buy and trade big cats in order to make money and, I guess, to self-aggrandize. One thing that I couldn't help but think while watching Season 2 is what makes people want to get into this business at all. Like, what is the benefit of abusing animals, smuggling them, and killing them? Like, why is this a thing, and what's the point? The first half of the second season focuses on the Carole Baskin Joe Exotic case. Basically, Joe's in jail for planning the murder of Carole Baskin, who he believes murdered her own husband, Don Lewis. It was originally a cold case, but because of the first season of Tiger King, which came out last year, the case was reopened. There are some people who want to free Joe Exotic because they think he's innocent, and there are some people who think that Carole should be in jail. Her husband, Don Lewis, simply just disappeared one day, and they never found his body. So that's their drama, and I think in the end of the documentary we find out that Joe was actually framed for plotting this murder, but I'm not really sure on all of the details there, so please don't take my word for that. The second half of the show was actually what I think the show should be about, and that is rescuing the animals. There's this one awful guy named Tim Stark who is also an abuser, let's just call it what it is, and he ends up getting all of his animals taken away and they're sent to a rescue center, but it of course isn't the same thing as living in the wild, but at least they're not pent up in cages anymore. It's nice that they showed a happy ending for the animals, and I don't know if they're going to make a third season, but it's definitely an interesting story if you want to follow it, but I don't really care about all the true crime stuff, if I'm honest. So, number 8. Taylor Swift's All Too Well. So Taylor Swift recently made a short film and an extended 10-minute version of her song All Too Well. I always really liked this song, and all of her songs paint such vivid pictures that it is easy to imagine them as movies. I mean, even in her more recent albums, she crafted characters and an overarching plot. All Too Well, the short film, focuses on her relationship with Jake Gyllenhaal, who was 29 at the time when Taylor was only 20. Before this, John Mayer dated Taylor Swift when he was 32 and she was 19. It's pretty obvious that when Taylor was just starting out in Hollywood, she was preyed upon by a lot of older men, and in the extended version of the song, she even calls Gyllenhaal out for this. I personally really love Taylor Swift's music, her new stuff as well as her old stuff, and she is probably my favorite artist. I think her lyrics are really smart, and I think the genre she shines the best in is definitely more folksy and country rather than straight pop, but she has some poppy hits too that are also great. I think her lyrics though are the reason why I like her music so much, and of course how she's able to talk about her experiences in such a way that they make the songs personal on 2 levels. Firstly, they're about her personal experiences, and secondly, she's able to paint her experiences in such a broad picture that the lyrics can apply to a vast audience. In the extended version of All Too Well, the lyrics are less broad and definitely more specific, but I think that just makes it all the more special. As for the short film itself, I found it to be just okay. I like the ending where we see her and how she's aged and how she is aging, and I really like that part. But I don't know, the dialogue and the characters just didn't do it for me. So number 9, Arcane League of Legends. I don't play League of Legends, but when I saw the show being advertised to me on Netflix, I knew that I had to watch it. The artwork in the poster alone is so amazing and engaging. I just binged it all in one day, and it was just really good. I won't get into the plot or anything, but it was just so refreshing to see an animated show aimed at an older audience that had really good animation. Sometimes you see animated movies or TV shows for adults, and they're usually comedic and done in a very simple style, or at least very 2D, which of course fits the genre, and that's not a bad thing. But it is just really cool to see an extremely serious animated show for adults that utilizes this highly intricate 3D painted style with all the visual effects also done in that same style. My personal favorite story was that of Victor's and the quote-unquote mutation must survive subplot. I think the only thing that I didn't care for was the cop stuff with Caitlyn and her learning the horrors of the underworld and coming to grips with her privilege. I personally just found that boring. I don't know, again, if that's an unpopular opinion, but I personally just, again, found that boring. And I guess the last gripe I have with the story is that it reminds me a lot of The Dragon Prince, which is another one of my favorite shows, by the way. The most striking similarities to me are Victor with the runes and Silco with his eye. Like, that reminds me so much of The Dragon Prince with Viren and his purple bug thing that's actually an evil elf. And these similarities wouldn't be a problem, but their character designs are also extremely similar, and the way their bodies deteriorate is also very similar. Like, the side effects are the same, and they also just share, again, eerily similar themes. For example, Viren and Claudia's relationship is sort of similar to Silco and Jinx's relationship, with them being loved, but also manipulated by their fathers or father figures. Of course, a piece of media being similar to another piece of media isn't a bad thing. They're both amazing shows and great characters in their own right, but I don't know, I just thought I'd mention that. Either way, I can't wait for the next seasons of both shows. Number 10, Love Hard. Love Hard is a Christmas movie that just came out on Netflix, starring Jimmy O. Yang and Nina Dobrev, and it's something. The plot centers around Nina's character Natalie, who gets matched with Jimmy's character Josh, but Josh is actually pretending to be his friend from elementary school, Tag. So Nina flies from California to New York to surprise Josh, only to find out that he's not who he says he is, but Josh says that if Natalie pretends to be his girlfriend, he'll help her land Tag. Of course, the lie is revealed, and then there's this unnecessary other lie added about how Natalie works for this dating column, and that's another reason why she's putting up with Josh that Josh doesn't know about. and it's just really lame. The only good thing from this movie is Jimmy's performance because he's actually really funny. On the other hand, Natalie is the oddest character in that she's constantly making these feminist quips, but instead of being like, hey, yeah, that makes sense, it's done to make her unlikable. But there is this one feminist moment when they rewrite Baby It's Cold Outside to make it more consensual, which is interesting, but most of the time Natalie at least came off to me as the shrill, annoying woman who needs to let loose. I don't know, I just didn't like it, and I also didn't like how her face is disfigured in the beginning of the movie as some sort of comedic gag. I also didn't like how when Josh complains to Natalie about not being able to find dates on apps, it's because his pictures are genuinely creepy, not because he's East Asian, and how it's hard for East Asian guys, specifically ones with less white features, to find dates and be considered desirable. They do bring up the fact that he's Chinese, but Natalie can't be biased, of course, because she dated a guy from Beijing who was great in bed. It would have been more interesting to discuss how on social media it's hard to get seen as an East Asian guy, and though I do think that's brought up in the movie simply by virtue of the casting, they could have talked about it more. We're in the home stretch now. Number 11, Disney Plus's Home Alone reboot. So I'm a fan of the original Home Alone movies and think that they're great Christmas movies for kids and adults. I know some parents don't like the violence, and there are definitely things in the movies that don't hold up, but I thoroughly can enjoy them for what they are, and I think as kids grow up, they can choose whether to engage with them or not. With that said, did we really need another Home Alone movie? Besides the first two, there are three others, one from 1997, one from 2002, and one from 2012 that tried to update the film for modern audiences, and of course, to get money. The one from 2002 is particularly weird because they act as if the actor playing Kevin is the same Kevin and the robber is the same robber from the first two movies when they're not. Within the past 20 or so years, we seem to have learned our lesson to not remake Home Alone, except in 2012, but I guess that lesson was forgotten, so here's Home Sweet Home Alone. So this one centers on two families, the downtrodden and poor Mackenzie family and the rich Mercer family. The Mackenzies are having an open house one day as they can no longer afford to live there, and the Mercer family points out that a doll Jeff, the Mackenzie patriarch, owns is worth a lot of money. Jeff researches this later and it turns out to be true, but then he realizes that the doll is gone and that it was stolen by the Mercer son Max. So the Mackenzie parents, Jeff and Pam, decide to steal the ugly little boy doll back from Max, who's home alone. But of course, when Max overhears them, he thinks they're talking about him, and a misunderstanding occurs which forces Max and the Mackenzies into conflict, and hijinks ensue. So in this new version, the robbers are now sympathetic and not just evil bad guys anymore, and everything could just be solved with words, but then it wouldn't be Home Alone, so there's still an absurd amount of violence in the film, even though again, this is all a verbal misunderstanding. And while all of this is happening, we're supposed to believe that the mom is fighting her hardest to get back to her son, which we only see in maybe 2 scenes until she suddenly just appears and is back home. I do like the cartoon violence in Home Alone movies. I guess I just have a really basic sense of humor, and this one does have decent slapstick, but actually most of the jokes that are actually really funny are in the dialogue. For example, the ugly little boy line and all of that. And I call this the quote-unquote woke Home Alone, mainly because they tried to be more accepting of people's differences, but it's honestly just a mixed bag. For example, Max makes fun of Jeff for owning dolls, but then also likes to dress in his mom's clothes when he's home alone, and we're supposed to see that, I think, as a good thing rather than something to be mocked. But we still, for some reason, need to mock and make fun of the fact that Jeff had dolls as a kid or has dolls now and that he cares for them. I don't know, maybe we are supposed to laugh at Max in his mother's clothes, but that just seems way too mean-spirited for 2021. As for race, they do make a joke with Max's mom, who thinks that the airline hostess in Japan can't speak English, but she can.
That guy, when he leave here, which way did he go? We looking for him.
But then there's this really awkward joke, where the joke is simply that the Mackenzies, when trying to get the doll back, end up in a black family's home by mistake. The joke, of course, is that they're in the wrong house, but they spend an uncomfortable amount of time establishing that this house belongs to a black family, and that that's somehow funnier than it belonging to a white family. It reminds me a lot of the "there's an Asian family in our kitchen" joke from 500 Days of Summer, where simply pointing out someone's race is a joke. Maybe I'm just looking too into it, but that really took me out of the movie, and there's also only 2 black characters in the whole film that disappear by the halfway mark. Long story short, this movie has no focus and is just all over the place, but the classic slapstick is still there for what it's worth. And to just keep talking about this movie because I disliked it so much, I guess what I really didn't like about it was that we now have to have a sympathetic backstory for the robbers, but then when they get hurt, it's not as funny because they're not cartoon evil bad guys, they're poor working class people, one of whom is unemployed. It's as if the writers, directors, and producers wanted to fix a problem that was never a problem in the first place. In the first two Home Alone movies, the bad guys are just bad guys who can't be reasoned with, and that's fine. We don't need to feel sympathy for two people who in the second one threatened to kill a child at gunpoint. And just to overthink this movie even more, it sucks how the only way this poor family can save their house is by auctioning off this rare doll. Like, that's kind of shitty. It reminds me a lot of people who make fundraisers to receive medical care that should just be taken care of by a social safety net. Not everybody has a rare family heirloom they can just auction off. And also, most people, I don't think, like thinking about their own class struggles during Christmas. We watch Christmas movies to escape reality, not to be confronted with how terrible the economy is. And finally, Christmas isn't about money or things, it's about spending time with people you love, as illustrated in the first movie with the neighbor reuniting with his family. But this one is just all about money, and money is important, obviously, but to have it be the center of your Christmas movie just isn't something I personally find fun to watch. Alright, so now that we're done with that, let's talk about my channel updates. So back in October, I decided to take a break from YouTube. I was just feeling at the time so overwhelmed with not only YouTube, but with social media in general, that I just had to delete everything that I could. I got rid of my Instagram and my Twitter, and those were rash decisions, but also, at least to me, kind of necessary. I knew I could have just made like a pinned tweet or something or just logged off, but I think I knew at the time that simply doing those things wouldn't keep me off of those apps, and that I would still check them obsessively, which is really unhealthy. For the past 2 years, I haven't taken a break from social media or for doing YouTube until the break that I just took recently. It got to a point that for the Squid Game video, I just didn't sleep. It was all I could think about, getting that video out for the algorithm, and that was just my breaking point. I cared so much about my analytics and comparing myself to others, and I would just spend my entire day checking my analytics, and it became so consuming, and I realized that I just really needed to take a break. So I decided to stay offline for November and part of December, and I think I'm finally ready to share myself with you all again. I also happened to delete my YouTube memberships and my Patreon because I'm still testing the waters to see how much content I'm really ready to produce and handle, and I just don't want to overwhelm myself with needing to make extra content for paid members. And with that, I just want to say thank you to anyone who has ever donated to my channel. It means so much to me and it really keeps me going. And thank you also for being so supportive of me when I decided to take my break, and hopefully you're excited to see more content by me in the future. I posted the American Girl video and the Liberty's Kids video as a way for me to see if I am ready to come back in 2022, and I think I am. However, I won't be posting as frequently as I used to. I probably will be sticking to maybe one video a month, but I don't really have a schedule as of right now, and I don't really know what topics I'll be doing. I usually just talk about whatever I want to talk about, so that'll probably be the methodology going forward, but I am open to taking video suggestions, so if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. And lastly, I might reopen my Patreon and members next year, but not to make any extra content, just to give people early access and maybe have their names in the ending credits. So yeah, I might be doing that, but I'll let you know. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this somewhat lighthearted video, and if you did, please engage with it for the algorithm, give it a like, comment, and share it. And also please don't forget to follow me on Twitter, as I had to remake my Twitter because I deleted the other one. So yeah, thank you so much for your understanding and patience and kind words, and have a great rest of the year, or what's left of it, and I hope you have a great next year too, and I'll see you all in 2022. Bye.